I'm not a founder, I'm not an entrepreneur, but we can all access a founder's mindset and entrepreneurialism in everything we do. If you can personalize your product, you can personalize your proposition, you can personalize your offer, you're onto a winner because the consumers love you. So you fire yourself, metaphorically, and you're going to be rehired the following week by yourself. I've kind of called it my own mental defrag. Do I think my idea was wrong? No. Did it work out badly? Yeah.
Learn from the best with Unpacking Success, the DHL eCommerce podcast with Pablo Ciano.
Welcome to the very first episode of my podcast, Unpacking Success. We deep dive into the journeys of visionaries, entrepreneurs, innovators, and industry pioneers. From lessons learned the hard way to strategies that change the game, this podcast is your front row seat to the minds shaping the future of e-commerce. Today, I have the honor of having with me a legend of the e-commerce industry in the UK, Nick Beighton. Nick has been instrumental in helping companies such as ASOS of Matches Fashion grow significantly. He's also an advisor for many startups. He currently serves as a non-executive director for the Very Group and a chair for Secret Sales. Nick, thank you very much for being here and welcome.
Thank you, Pablo. My pleasure. Great to see you again.
Before we go into business, I wanted to ask you some personal questions, if that is okay with you.
Oh, God. Okay.
So I heard that you are Manchester United fan and also a very good golf player. Which one would you like to talk about first?
I'm a better fan than I am a golfer, but I'm aspiring to be better. I love both. Manchester United, right now, it's not the best thing to talk about, so let's try some golf.
Let's talk about golf then. So, which was your most memorable golf experience, either as a player or as a viewer in any golfing event?
Yeah, that was Medina, and the Ryder Cups is one of the most vibrant sporting occasion you could possibly imagine. On the Saturday, the Americans were 10-6 up, and I went with some Europeans, and we were getting an awful lot of abuse in the over dinner. And then what we saw on the Sunday was absolutely magical performance from the Europeans, and they beat the American team, and it became known as the Miracle of Medina. And I was lucky enough to be there with a group of pals. It was a special weekend.
Beautiful, beautiful. But of course, besides golf and Man United, it was very interesting to see that your career started in finance. You studied as an associate in KPMG and then went all the way into finance and all the way into CEO of ASOS and many other accomplishments. So how do I connect the dots between finance, e-commerce, and fashion? Help me understand that, please.
Well, I could say I probably wasn't that good an accountant in the first place. And but as an accountant, what I loved was business, and I loved consumer, and I loved studying in business how the consumer's reacting to various propositions, various delivery options, different products, and I loved sweating the data. And what I loved about the accounting qualification was the analytical ability and discipline that it teaches your mind, which is a key attribute for business. Having that analytical ability, studying the customer, looking how things change, looking how customers react with your products, with your propositions. So that became a natural flip. And actually, as it happened, I never noticed it. It felt like I should have been doing that all along.
Nice. And because it's very consistent with everything that then we saw with your career, which was putting data at the center of understanding customer experience and how to use data in order to improve the overall customer experience. Is that fair that when you evolve in your career, you ended up putting data and all your decisions being driven by data?
Yes. So one of the things that's fascinating about retail and commerce is there's something happening all the time. Someone's always buying something. Someone always delivering something. Someone's always packing something. And seeing the impact of small changes and how it moves the business, moves the needle was really important. I started in retail in 1998, but actually my first retail job was as a Saturday lad. So I've developed an obsession all the way from there. Then when data became a thing through e-commerce, it was I'm going to use data to turbocharge every decision. So it became a key touch point for checking what we were doing, validating decisions. And sometimes when there was no data to assess what you were doing, making that leap and then using the data retrospectively, because data isn't predictive. So you have to have a mindset to experiment and then sweat the data. And there are many decisions in business that aren't one-way doors. You can literally go, let's give that one a go, sweat the data, see what happens, and pivot if necessary. So data and analytics became a key touch point of everything I did.
So you have had experience in multiple companies, different business models, from marketplaces to direct to consumer. Is there a common denominator that you see in those companies as key success factors that are common in all of the different business models?
Yeah, it's not the model. It's never the model. The model is what you choose. It's how you operate it. And there's a mindset of entrepreneurialism and what I call a founder mentality. I'm not a founder. I'm not an entrepreneur, but we can all access a founder's mindset and entrepreneurialism in everything we do. So if we combine that mindset, that approach with whatever model, then you find a way of looking for the gold. Of course, you need to be obsessed by customers too, Pablo, because the very reasons business exists is because someone wants to buy your service. So you have to be obsessed by that too.
And how do you, when you go to a startup, you are advising many startups and many companies now. When you go to a company, how do you feel and smell and see that the team has that founder's mentality? How does it manifest in the day-to-day activities?
So I like to start with understanding the purpose, mission, and values. The purpose is why we do what we do. And what's the rationale? What are we giving to the consumer? Then I like to understand the mission and going, where are we going? And then I like to understand how are we going about our work? So once you have that, I'll call that the inspiration layer. You know that there's a strong intent. Then it's about focus on markets, focus on products. And when you get those things right, you start to have the ingredients of whether this is going to fly. I will then go to the analytics. I'll then look through the balance sheet. I'll then look through the P&L. But I need to start with those things first to make sure there's something worthwhile.
In that inspiration layer that you are describing as the foundation, how do you transport that throughout the organization? Do you use any operational type of tactics to transport that across the entire organization?
Yes. So I'll give you the best example from ASOS. The ASOS purpose was to give people the confidence to be whoever they wanted to be. And the mission was to be the world's #1 destination for fashion-loving 20-somethings. And we were guided by a set of values that was authentic, brave, creative, and disciplined. And my mission was to ensure that every person in the organization knew it. Every person in the organization, from the guy who opened the door and said good morning to us to the guy who was packing the parcel, knew his role was to give the customer the confidence to be whoever they wanted to be. And they knew their role and their mission, was to build the biggest fashion destination on the planet. I was restless in that pursuit until everyone got it. And then I kept on reinforcing it. And as CEO, you have to be present in every moment. Think about the impact you're leaving, because as CEO, regrettably, you have an impact. Whatever room you turn and walk into, every meeting you walk into, every podcast or every Zoom call you walk into, make sure that impact's a good one, reinforcing mission, purpose, and values. And then you get the power of your organization working towards that. Rather than 1 + 1, you get the power of the organization moving forward. That gives you a galvanizing leap forward.
Beautiful. Do you think that those approaches and tactics are still applicable in today's world of super fast changing e-commerce? There's a lot going on from, of course, the China marketplaces to the evolution of luxury, direct-to-consumer, out-of-home marketplaces. Do you think that even though a lot is changing, that is still very valid?
So the inspiration layer is absolutely the same regardless. Wherever people are operating models, that is required. Now, all the things that you've just described are what I will call the westward winds of change, and people trying to push you and things trying to push you off course. And if they're pushing you off course, then you're losing your mission. You'll become wayward. Now, if the mission's no longer got a pot of gold to it, pivot fast. So be aware of them, but don't be pushed off your mission unless you need to be pushed off the mission. And what you evolve with different technologies, different circumstances, are new mechanisms and new ways to achieve rather than different ways to inspire and lead.
So talking about those changes, how do you see the ongoing landscape of e-commerce? So we have, for example, this debate between direct to consumer or marketplaces, who is going to be conquering and who's going to continue gaining market share from an e-commerce perspective. Do you have a perspective between those two different approaches? What is your view on that?
So I think both models are fantastic and both models have legs. One model won't win on the back of the other. What you tend to see, which confuses you, is you see various models getting overhyped early doors and then underhyped in the long term. So post-COVID, it was that we've seen a switch back to retail, physical retail, and less volumes going through e-commerce, either a marketplace model or a normal wholesale style model. Now, looking at that, I see way more chances for e-commerce to trigger new growth with new technologies, new solutions, new cross-border issues than I do physical. So at the moment, I think e-commerce in whatever model is being deployed is underappreciated, undervalued. If you look through the new wave of consumers, our children, they will wonder why we ever walk down the high street and go shopping. They'll think it's a nice thing to do, but actually, given that they can get the world's best products on their smartphone without leaving their bedrooms, and that is going to be a bigger wave coming through. The advent and the further adoption of AI will turbocharge those experiences. So I see way more triggers to grow e-commerce than I can to grow physical. I love physical. I grew up in physical, but I see way more growth opportunities in e-commerce through either a marketplace model or any other model than I do on physical.
That is beautiful to hear because, as you know, we are counting on e-commerce to continue growing because we deliver packages for e-commerce. So that is very good coming from an expert like you. That is blessing to my ears. So, but what about these new players in the market? Not that new, but from over the last few years, we have seen these Chinese marketplaces, Temu, Shein, TikTok growing and gaining market share significantly. Do you think that is sustainable?
So in every market, whatever it is you do, classic economics brings new entrants. And new entrants are good for the overall pie. They grow the share of pie. They grow the size of the market, and they also disrupt. Some things need to break or will break before new things can be formed. It's just the way life is. And the best businesses and the best brands will continue to focus on their mission, continue to know where the gold is, and pivot how they need to pivot. And they should take the input of new models to be a stimulus to grow, innovate faster, and things like that. That said, there's much about their business model and much about their mindset to be admired, but there's also lots to be terrified about. So take the bits that are worth admiring, replicate and innovate harder and faster if possible. And that was the best inspiration for it.
Another big trend these days, as you might have seen, is entire C2C and reuse, refurbished type of marketplaces. Vinted is the greatest example in Europe. How do you see that type of segment? Do you see that it will continue growing at the pace that it's growing, which is much faster than any other e-commerce category? What is your view on that?
Yeah, so one of the highest growth sectors within fashion, for example, is the reuse, recycle, and rental. Reuse, recycle growing massively. Vinted, Depop, eBay are classic examples of all of that. And I think that will continue to grow. Some of that will be sustainability-led consumers, and that will be the Gen Z, late millennials driving it. That's a huge growth segment. Rental, not growing so fast in clothing, but it's got high percentage growth of a very small base. I don't yet think that has got mainstream adoption, but it will be. So I think those two models are great, and I think those models will continue to grow. But the best consumer model would be build a brand that is hyper-personalized, build a brand that is hyper-localized for cross-border, build a brand that allows the consumer to buy something new, hire something, recycle something. And then you have cut every part of the economics, the global cross-border, and the consumer tastes. So I think we'll see a number of those models all coming to pass. At the moment, there are individual models in resale, there are individual models in hire. I think some of those will get swept up by bigger brands, a bit like the vertical integration point, and having it part of the offer for the brand to allow the consumers to do whatever they want, how they want. Imagine buying something on ASOS, for example. You buy something new, they make a lot of margin. You then click resell and you resell it to a known customer base and you monetize your wardrobe within one customer experience delivered by the delivery partners. You go again. You capture eyeballs, you capture spend, you take away friction, and you make yourself super relevant for the consumer. Customer relevancy keeps customers coming back.
That's great. That's great. You mentioned sustainability a couple of times. What we observed was that 3 or 4 years ago, there was a significant interest from many retailers and in particular fashion companies to decarbonize their supply chains. Actually, we helped many companies to have their end-to-end supply chains fully decarbonized. Recently, in the last 18 months in particular, we have seen that interest slowing down a little bit. We don't know if it is something related to the overall macro context or is related because of competition from some marketplaces which are not putting too much focus on sustainability and decarbonization. What is your view on overall sustainability from the point of view of decarbonized supply chains? Do you think that that is something that will continue being a valid value proposition to consumers or probably not that much?
Somebody needs to take care of the planet we inherited, so we can give it to our children and their children. And so that is an enduring need. And if we organize our businesses and supply chains with that in mind, we're doing the right thing. Now, short-term trends are difficult to predict in the long term. Long term, I think what I've just said will continue to be the right thing for all of us to do. Short term, I think the impetus has been slower, and it's been slower because brands will be seeing customers under financial pressure and customers choosing to have some of their values washed out at the checkout rather than some of their values guiding their purchasing decisions. So I've done a lot of work on this. So I would be wary of short-term blips for something that's a long-term necessity and imperative.
Moving on to digitalization and the role of technology, you mentioned AI. Some time ago, you began introducing this concept of augmented reality applied to fashion and to e-commerce. How do you see all of this now converging, AI, augmented reality, the role of digitalization in e-commerce?
One of the retailers' philosopher's stone is personalization. If you can personalize your product, you can personalize your proposition, you can personalize your offer, you're onto a winner because the consumers love you. The consumers will go, the more I hang out with this brand, the more they get me. Why would they want to go anywhere else? Right. So AI, scaling personalization is tricky because it requires a set of touch points in humans. Scaling personalization through AI is a lot easier. So imagine personalized homepages. Going, since you last visited Pablo, here's all the product we know you love. Here's the product that you, in the size you want. Here's some things that we know that might be appealing to you. All of a sudden, a personalized website or a personalized app suddenly becomes way more compelling. So you don't scroll so much. It gets discovered and served up to you through AI tools. Lots of things are coming in this that are just still nascent, but getting better. So I think this will turbocharge e-commerce. Then if you go to the back office, machine learning to lower the cost of handling transactions, wherever it may be. Machine learning to improve the customer care, serve it in local language, serve it in across multiple borders in a way that's way more predictive. That's a better experience for consumers. All of that will improve experience, lower cost. So these are areas that I'm seeing a number of companies experimenting. And again, there's lots of fragmentation of lots of startups doing it that will come together and become mainstream adopted. And that will change the models.
Which are, in your view, a couple of companies that are applying this AI applied to customization and customer experience? Do you have any examples that you would like to share?
TikTok and Instagram almost know exactly what you're browsing, what you're thinking about, and serve up super relevant ads, all about designing you, keeping you in their ecosystem. matching that with e-commerce and using those principles will be a game changer.
Nice. So going to your career, you have had, again, a lot of experience in multiple companies. Do you have an example of a screw up that then you look backwards and say, well, this was really a screw up at the point in time, but then it ended up, making us stronger?
I was once in charge of technology. So in my early days, I was a CTO. And one of the early decisions I made was to outsource all the technology because they'd put this finance guy in charge of tech. So I thought if I outsource the technology, that will take care of a big problem. Actually, I learned that was not the answer. You can outsource tasks, but you can never outsource responsibility. Several months after outsourcing it, all the systems went down. And I was then the man on the point where the organization had stopped. The warehouses had stopped. The stores had stopped. Through that moment, I learned an awful lot about how to do it better next time, what the pitfalls were. And I also learned I didn't know enough about technology until I learned about technology through that screw up.
And you are providing a lot of strategic advice to many startups when you get with these, young team members and entrepreneurs. Is there any specific piece of advice that you give them in general?
Yeah, some of it is, and what's lovely about those is you learn as much from them as they do from you. And the themes tend to be, don't be hesitant on that one. That's a winner. Go for it. Or watch out with that one because this is how it could turn out. And so that tends to be the flavor of most of the advice. Because the startups have energy, they have passion, they've seen a gap in the market and they want to try shit. But sometimes they need a bit of encouragement to go, that one's great. And sometimes you need to say, slow down on that one. Never tell them to stop, but let them go through their own learning, but just say, go slower on that one because it could be a problem. That one's a winner. So that's where the fun is.
And how do you determine when to pivot? Because as you're saying, yes, there's some opportunities or projects or features and products that will be looking promising and it's easy to identify that they are getting some traction. Sometimes the challenge is that when they are in between, right? They are looking somehow promising, but they're not getting too much traction. They require a lot of attention, but yet, still not seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. When and how do you determine, hey, this is time to pull the plug and pivot to something different?
So the data tells you it's time to pivot. The brain has to catch up. And then the brain has to catch up where you discuss, is the opportunity still there? Have the circumstances changed? Or is there something we didn't know when we embarked on it? And so you have to discuss those through. The data tells you how you're moving towards it. So let's say we've started to do a course of action and the data's not working. And then you have to have a long conversation, many conversations, and then you make a pivot. And I'll give you examples where I got this wrong. I was obsessed by conversational commerce at one point. So I made the IT team build conversational commerce, which was talking to your smartphone to do your shopping. I'm going to speak to my smartphone and say, please show me all new diesel jeans because I like diesel jeans. So rather than pressing the buttons and swiping, it was going to be voice activated. I thought that was going to be a winner. My team had to tell me to pull the plug. So sometimes you have to listen to your team. Do I think my idea was wrong? No. Did it work out badly? Yeah. And sometimes that happens, but you just capture the learning and go again. So on that example, that required the team to go, Nick, this ain't working. We need to pull it.
So along those lines, which was your greatest achievement from a business perspective that you are most proud of personally?
That's a good question. I tend not to think like that, Pablo. I'll give you one. I tend to stay in the present. And if you stay in the present, you don't reflect on the past. You fix what's in front of you. I tend to take forward everything that's made me stronger. And I process the learnings or where I've had failures. The failures I call learnings. I call them bumps on the road and then make sure I stay in the present. But the greatest moments I have got are not about building assets, building things. It's the impact you leave on people. So I'll give you an example. A couple of weeks ago, I was getting the train into London with the family. I was on my phone and my wife was fiddling with the ticket machine. Some guy came up and helped her, smiled to me. I was on my phone and I should have been helping. And he said, I used to work for your dad. Say hi to him. Let me help you with the tickets. He was a great boss. Those things give me the best satisfaction, Pablo, rather than I built that or I built that. So it's the impact on others and seeing others succeed and fly that gives me the most pleasure.
Very true, very true. And I fully agree with you. When I every now and then receive a nice email from a employee that is not working very closely with me, and I, see the impact that we can make in our people, it's amazing, right? The rewards that comes with those type of words is priceless. But talking about
Agreed.
the present, what is the coolest thing, if you can say, and if you can share, what is the coolest thing or startup that you are advising or working on these days?
I think secret sales is pretty cool. I think Luquiero, which is a Spanish business that I've been helping, is pretty cool. That's an AI-driven fashion model in Europe. It's just done a merger that was part of advising, and that will be a couple €100 million, super profitable, and only 7 years old. So I think that's pretty cool. I love the Zalando and About You acquisition. I think that's an amazing European proposition they're building. The point being is there's inspiration everywhere, Pablo. You just have to be open to receive it.
Nice, beautiful. Lots of interesting startups and ventures. So I read that every year you go through this reflection time that you call the annual gut check, that gives you the opportunity to reflect if you are still energized to continue doing what you are doing. Can you walk us a little bit through that? How do you do it? Why do you do it? What value do you take? Are you still doing it?
It started when I was CTO some time earlier, and I nicknamed it a mental defragmentation. So anyone listening who's got some technology understanding will know what a fragmentation of a database is. So during that process I referred to earlier, when everything crashed, I then had the tech guys explain what was happening. And one of the issues was the databases had become fragmented. And I said, you're going to have to explain what that is. And they said, imagine a telephone directory. I know we don't have them anymore. But the telephone directory, all the pages have been pulled out and thrown back together in non-chronological or non-alphabetical order. I went, yeah, nightmare. He said, that's what happens to a database when it gets fragmented. And so the database are looking for records, but it can't find it. It all locks. And then you get a database lock. I went, what do you do? He said, we go through a defragmentation and re-indexing. I went, got it. So let's do that then. He went, we are, Nick. I went, brilliant. When the guy walked away, I sat and went, that's how my brain gets under stress, where I'm hitting the same records regularly and not recharging, and I'm hoping for more clarity. Well, hitting the same records regularly and hoping for more clarity ain't going to work. So I did a mental defrag where I then go, I need to just pause. I need to breathe. Stress is not the enemy. It's how you handle stress. And how you handle that stress builds your own resilience and builds your own confidence. So that process I tend to do every 2 or 3 months. What have I learned? What do I need to let go of? What's not making me stronger and what's making me stronger? And I do that and I emerge with, I've got it. The things that you wake up at night and then become the energy vampire for you are the things that you can't change or the things that you're worrying about that won't happen. So you have to get rid of them from your brain. If you get rid of them from the brain, you can stay focused and move again. I then was discussing this with another CEO who was the CEO of Logica at the time. And he did that annually. And I then went, I'm just going to nick that because that works. And so it was literally an annual process where I'm doing a reset and am I up for it? Have I got the energy? Am I the right person? So you fire yourself metaphorically and you're going to be rehired the following week by yourself. And the person that's rehiring knows everything you've not done and everything that you can do that you should be doing better. So if you can face that person and rehire yourself, you're in good shape. So that's how I do it to manage my own stress, my own mental process. So I've kind of called it my own mental defrag.
That's very nice. Actually, you should write a book about it. I can see a book that is mental defragmentation by Nick and how to put it into practice. Now, that's amazing. Yeah, because of course we all try to put in practice daily or weekly type of routines to reflect a little bit and to journal and to decompress and to reduce the stress and organize our thoughts. But having it in the way that you are describing it is very interesting. So yeah, thank you very much for sharing. So before I ask you the last question, is there anything that you would like to share about either e-commerce, your career, your experience, anything that you think that the audience will be interesting in hearing about?
E-commerce, I think, is undervalued at this point in time and will only get bigger just because of the things I said earlier. And so beware of share prices telling you long-term trends in short-term moments. So I see tons of triggers to improve e-commerce performance, valuation, and adoption by customers. That's something I fervently believe in. I don't think physical retail will disappear. I don't want it to disappear, but I do think a bigger share of that pie over the next 10-year cycle will be e-commerce. Having a model that has a bit of everything, physical and digital, will be great. Having a model that combines, certainly in fashion, having a model that combines various ways to shop, giving customers power to choose and interact, I think will be a winner. In terms of things to share, I never had a long-term plan. I went with things that felt good at the time. I never expected ASOS to turn out the way we did. We never reflected on what was behind us. We only reflected what was in front of us. And one of the things that's consistent in everything you do, it requires hard work and commitment. If you find a brand or a endeavor that captures your mind, your purpose, your values, you don't notice the hard steps. And when you don't notice the hard steps, it's fun. If it's not fun, you can change it and never be afraid to change it.
That's great. Beautiful words. Thank you, Nick. So last question, going back to golf. Have you taken any lessons from golf and applied them into business?
Oh, yes. So one of the beautiful things about golf is you can, when you're playing with someone, you see their whole personality come straight to the fore. One of the lessons from golf is stay calm. The next shot is the most important. The one you've just put in the water, you ain't getting it back. So don't worry about the one in the water. Worry about the next one.
That's nice. Beautiful. I fully agree with that. Golf in many ways is a synonymous of life as well, right? In many ways. Good. Hey, thank you very much for your time. Has been great. Beautiful conversation. Hopefully you have also enjoyed it. Thank you, and we'll be in touch.
Thanks, Pablo. Speak soon. I appreciate it.
Thank you.